The hot tub bubbled like a secret waiting to spill, steam curling into the crisp Oregon evening as I sank deeper into the water. My heart was a traitor, pounding louder than the jets. Because Ethan, me best friend since we were kids stealing comic books from the corner store, was looking at me like he never had before. His hazel eyes, usually laughing, were heavy with something unspoken, something that made my stomach twist and my breath catch. We'd been inseparable for years, Ethan and me. Growing up in the small town of Ashland, we'd shared everything, secrets whispered under blankets at sleepovers, dreams of escaping to Portland or Seattle, the sting of rejection from high school crushes. But tonight, in his parents' backyard, with the stars peeking through the pine trees, something felt different. The air was thick with it, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Jake," Ethan said, his voice low, almost lost in the hum of the hot tub. He shifted closer, the water rippling between us. "You ever think about, what if we weren't just friends?" I froze. My throat tightened, and I wanted to laugh it off, to splash water in his face and call him an idiot like I always did. But I couldn't, because the truth was, I had thought about it many times, in the quiet of my room, when I'd catch myself staring at the way his smile lit up a room, or how his hand brushing mine felt like a spark. I stammered, my voice betraying me. The water felt hotter, the steam thicker, like it was pressing us closer. Ethan's hand moved under the water, slow, deliberate, and then it was there, his fingers grazing my thigh, light as a question. My breath hitched, and I didn't pull away. "Just this once," he whispered, his eyes searching mine, pleading and terrified all at once. "Just to see." I should have stopped him. I should have laughed, or punched his shoulder, or climbed out of the hot tub and gone back to pretending everything was normal. But I didn't. I let his hand stay, let it linger, let it burn through every wall I'd built around my heart. And when he leaned closer, his breath warm against my cheek, I didn't stop him then either. We'd been coming to this hot tub for years, ever since Ethan's parents installed it when we were 15. Back then, it was just a place to goof off after football practice or to hide from his mom's endless questions about college plans. But tonight, at 22, with the weight of unspoken truths between us, it felt like a crucible, forging something new and dangerous. Ethan pulled back slightly, his hand still resting on my thigh, his eyes wide with the same fear I felt clawing at my chest. "Jake, I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean to." "Don't." I cut him off, sharper than I meant. "Don't say you're sorry. Because if he was sorry, then this moment, this fragile, electric thing between us was a mistake. And I didn't want it to be a mistake. Not yet." He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing, and I could see the war in his eyes. Ethan, who'd always been the brave one, the one who'd jump off the quarry cliffs first or sneak us into concerts without tickets, was scared. Scared of me. Scared of us. "I've wanted to do that for a long time," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I didn't know if you'd hate me for it." Hate him. The idea was laughable, but my throat was too tight to laugh. I'd spent years burying my feelings for Ethan, convincing myself they were just a phase, just confusion. Growing up in Ashland, where everyone knew everyone's business, being anything other than straight felt like painting a target on your back. I'd seen what happened to kids who came out whispers in the halls, parents pulling their kids away like it was contagious. I told myself I could live without this, without him, as long as we stayed friends. But now, with his hand on my thigh and his eyes locked on mine, I wasn't sure I could keep lying to myself. "Ethan," I said, my voice shaking, "I don't hate you. I don't know what I feel, but it's not hate." His face softened, a flicker of hope breaking through the fear. He leaned closer again, and this time, I met him halfway. Our lips brushed, tentative, like we were both afraid the world would crack open if we went too far. But the world didn't crack. It burned. The next morning, I woke up in Ethan's guest room, the taste of last night still on my lips. My head was a mess, thoughts spiraling between panic and something dangerously close to hope. Had we really done that? Had I really let my best friend kiss me in his parents' hot tub? Let his hands wander? Let myself want more? I found Ethan in the kitchen, flipping pancakes like nothing had happened. But the way his hands shook when he handed me a plate told me everything. He was as scared as I was. "We should talk," I said, my voice rough from a sleepless night. He nodded, avoiding my eyes. "Yeah, but not here." We drove to our old spot by the Rogue River, a quiet bend where we used to skip stones and talk about nothing. The river was low this time of year, the water glinting under the morning sun. We sat on the bank, shoulders brushing, and for a while, neither of us spoke. "I meant what I said last night," Ethan finally said, his voice steady but soft. "About wanting this. But I know it's not that simple. Not here. Not with everything." Everything was our families, our friends, the small-town gossip that could ruin us. Ethan's dad was a deacon at the local church, and my mom ran the PTA. They'd never understand. Hell, I wasn't sure I understood. "I don't know what this means," I admitted, staring at the river. "But I know I don't want to lose you." "You won't," he said, and his hand found mine, squeezing gently. "We'll figure it out. Together." But even as he said it, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on us. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about everyone else, too. By the time we got back to Ethan's house, the air between us was different charged, fragile, like a glass sculpture waiting to shatter. His parents were home, and we slipped back into our old roles, best friends. Nothing more. But every glance, every accidental brush of his hand, felt like a secret we were both desperate to keep and desperate to scream. That night, lying in the guest room again, I couldn't sleep. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan, "Meet me outside. Please." I found him by the hot tub again, the water dark and still. He was sitting on the edge, his feet dangling in, his face lit by the faint glow of the backyard lights. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said, his voice raw. "And it's killing me, because I know this could ruin everything." I sat beside him, my heart racing. "Then why did you start this?" I asked, not accusing, just desperate to understand. "Because I'm tired of pretending," he said, turning to face me. "I'm tired of acting like you're just my friend when I've been in love with you for years." The words hit me like a punch, stealing my breath. Love. He'd said it. And the worst part, I knew I felt it too. I stared at Ethan, his words echoing in my head like a song I'd known forever but never dared to sing. Love. It was too big, too dangerous, and yet it fit perfectly into the ache I'd carried for years. The hot tub hummed softly behind us, a reminder of the line we'd crossed, and I wanted to pull him close and run away all at once. "Ethan," I said, my voice barely steady. "You can't just say that and expect me to know what to do." My hands were shaking, and I shoved them into my pockets to hide it. "This isn't just about us. If anyone finds out, I know." He cut in, his eyes flashing with frustration and fear. "You think I don't know? My dad would disown me. Your mom would probably cry for a week. But I can't keep living like this. Jake, I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way." The air felt heavy, like it was pressing us into the ground. I wanted to tell him I felt the same, that I dreamed of him in ways I'd never admitted to anyone. not even myself. But the words stuck in my throat, trapped by years of fear and shame. Instead, I reached out, my hand brushing his arm. It was a small gesture, but it felt like jumping off a cliff. I'm scared, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. But I don't want to stop this either. His eyes softened, and he leaned closer, his forehead resting against mine. Then we won't, he said. We'll be careful. We'll figure it out. The next few weeks were a blur of stolen moments and secret glances. We'd meet at the river, or in the back of Ethan's beat-up Toyota, parked in some forgotten lot where no one would see. Every touch, every kiss, felt like a rebellion against the world we'd grown up in. But it also felt like coming home. Ashland wasn't kind to people like us. We'd heard the sermons, seen the looks, known kids who'd been sent away to fix them. So we kept it hidden, burying our truth under layers of normalcy. At the diner where we worked part-time, we were just Jake and Ethan, the goofy best friends who could finish each other's sentences. But when we were alone, the world fell away, and it was just us 2 hearts beating too fast, too loud, too alive. One night, after a late shift, we ended up at the river again. The moon was full, casting silver light over the water, and Ethan was quieter than usual. "What's wrong?" I asked, nudging his shoulder. He sighed, picking at the grass between us. "I got into that art program in Seattle," he said finally. "Full scholarship." My heart sank. Seattle was a world away from Ashland. From us. "That's amazing," I said, forcing a smile. "You've wanted that forever." "Yeah," he said, but his voice was hollow. "But it means leaving. And I don't know how to do that without you." The words hung between us, heavy with the future we hadn't dared to talk about. I wanted to tell him to stay, to beg him not to go, but I couldn't. Ethan was an artist. His sketches of the mountains and rivers around us more alive than any photograph. He deserved this. "We'll figure it out," I said, echoing his words from weeks ago. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Could we survive distance? Could we survive the world? The first crack in our secret came a week later. We were at the diner, cleaning up after closing, when Sarah, one of our co-workers, caught us. We'd been careless, laughing too close, my hand lingering on Ethan's back as we wiped down tables. Her eyes narrowed, and though she didn't say anything, I saw the way she watched us after that, like she was piecing together a puzzle. "She knows," I told Ethan later, my voice tight with panic. We were in his car, parked by the river again, the darkness our only shield. "She doesn't know anything," he said, but he didn't sound convinced. "She's just nosy." "Ethan, this is serious," I snapped. "If she talks, if anyone finds out, then we'll deal with it," he said, grabbing my hand. "Jake, I'm not ashamed of you. I'm not ashamed of us." But I was. Not of him. Never of him. But of what it meant to be us in a town like this. I'd seen the way people talked about the gay couple who'd tried to open a bakery downtown. How they'd been driven out by whispers and boycotts. I didn't want that for Ethan. I didn't want that for me. The tension grew as summer faded into fall. Ethan was set to leave for Seattle in a month, and every moment we spent together felt like a countdown. We tried to make it work, stealing kisses in the shadows. But the fear was always there, lurking like a storm cloud. One night, at a bonfire with our old high school friends, it all came crashing down. Sarah was there, her eyes sharp and knowing. And when Ethan laughed and slung an arm around me, she didn't look away. Later, as we roasted marshmallows, she cornered me by the cooler. "I saw you two at the diner," she said, her voice low but pointed. "What's going on, Jake?" "Nothing," I lied, My heart pounding. We're just friends. She raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. You sure about that? Because it didn't look like nothing. I wanted to scream, to tell her to mind her own business. But I couldn't. Because she was right. And the truth was a knife in my chest. That night, I told Ethan we needed to be more careful. We can't keep doing this. I said, my voice breaking. Not here. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. So what? We just stop. Pretend this never happened. I don't know, I said, tears burning my eyes. I just know I can't lose you. And I can't lose everything else either. He didn't say anything, just pulled me into his arms and held me until the world felt a little less heavy. But I knew we were running out of time. The weeks before Ethan's move were a tightrope walk between love and fear. We clung to each other in secret, every touch a defiance of the world we lived in. But Sarah's suspicion had spread like wildfire, and I could feel the eyes on user friends, our co-workers, even strangers at the diner. Ashland was small, and secrets didn't stay buried long. One evening, as we sat by the river, Ethan broke the silence. Come with me to Seattle, he said, his voice urgent. We could start over. Be ourselves. I wanted to say yes. God, I wanted to. But my life was Haremi mom. My job. The only home I'd ever known. I can't just leave, I said, my voice cracking. My mom's sick. Ethan. She needs me. He nodded, but the hurt in his eyes cut deeper than any words. I get it, he said, but I can't stay here. Jake. Not like this. The truth hung between us. We were running out of ways to make this work. Seattle was his dream, but it felt like a wall between us, growing taller every day. The breaking point came at the worst possible moment. Ethan's parents invited me over for a going-away dinner, a bittersweet send-off before he left for Seattle. The dining room was warm, filled with the smell of roast chicken and the chatter of his family. But I could barely eat. My stomach knotted with dread. Halfway through dinner, Ethan's dad got a call. His face darkened as he listened. And when he hung up, he turned to Ethan, his voice cold. Mrs. Carter from church just called. Said she heard something about you and Jake. Something unnatural. The room went silent. Ethan's mom froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. My heart stopped, and I could feel Ethan tense beside me. It's not true, is it? His dad pressed, his eyes boring into Ethan's. Tell me it's not true. Ethan's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he'd deny it. But then he looked at me, and something in him shifted. It's true, he said, his voice steady. I love him. The words were a bomb, shattering the room. His mom gasped, tears welling in her eyes. His dad stood, his chair scraping against the floor. Get out, he said, his voice shaking with rage. Both of you. We left without another word, the door slamming behind us. In the driveway, Ethan grabbed my hand, his grip tight. I'm not sorry, he said, his voice fierce. I'm not. But I could see the cracks in him, the pain of losing his family, his home, and I hated myself for being part of it. We drove to the river, our sanctuary, and sat in silence for a long time. The water was dark, reflecting the stars above, and I felt like I was drowning in them. What do we do now? I asked, my voice barely audible. I don't know, Ethan admitted, his head in his hands. But I can't go back to pretending. Not after this. I wanted to promise him everything Seattle. A new life. A world where we could be together without fear. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I pulled him close, and we held each other as the night closed in around us. The next day, I went to see my mom. I hadn't planned to tell her, but the weight of everything was too much. I found her in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for soup, her hands steady despite the chemo that left her tired. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking, "I need to tell you something." She listened as I poured out the truth about Ethan, about me, about the love I'd been too afraid to name. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she set down her knife and pulled me into a hug. "I just want you to be happy," she said, her voice thick with tears. "And if Ethan makes you happy, then that's enough." Her words were a lifeline, but they couldn't erase the fear. Ethan's family had cast him out, and I knew the town wouldn't be far behind. We were marked now, our secret exposed, and there was no going back. Ethan moved to Seattle a week later. I drove him to the bus station, the air between us heavy with everything we hadn't said. "Come with me," he said again, his eyes pleading. "I can't," I said, my voice breaking. "Not yet." He nodded, but the hurt was there, raw and undeniable. We kissed one last time, a desperate, fleeting thing, and then he was gone, the bus pulling away into the dawn. The weeks that followed were a blur of loneliness and whispers. Sarah had talked, and the town had listened. My mom stood by me, but I could see the strain it put on her, the way her friends stopped calling. At the diner, customers stared, and my boss started cutting my shifts. Ashland wasn't home, Anna Maria was a cage. I threw myself into work, into caring for my mom, into pretending I could survive without Ethan. But every night, I'd lie awake, replaying our moments by the river, in the hot tub, in the quiet spaces where we'd been us. His texts came less often, his life in Seattle pulling him further away. He was thriving there, his art finding a home in galleries, his world expanding while mine shrank. One night, my mom sat me down. "You're not happy here," she said, her eyes sharp despite her fatigue. "You're staying for me, but I don't want that. Go to him, Jake. Live your life." Her words broke something in me, a dam I'd built to hold back the truth. I loved Ethan, and I couldn't keep running from it. Not anymore. I sold my old car, packed a bag, and bought a one-way ticket to Seattle. The bus ride was long, the scenery a blur of mountains and highways. But my heart was racing with something new hope. I didn't know what I'd find when I got there, but I knew I had to try. When I arrived, Ethan was waiting at the station, his face lighting up when he saw me. "You came," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I had to," I said, stepping into his arms. "I love you." Seattle was different, vibrant, open, a place where we could walk hand in hand without fear. It wasn't perfect. We had to rebuild, to navigate a world that was still learning to accept us. But we did it together, step by step, building a life that was ours. Years later, standing in our small apartment, Ethan's sketches lining the walls, I thought back to that night in the hot tub. It was a moment that could have broken us, a fleeting touch that changed everything. But it didn't. It made us. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living fully, bravely, unapologetically. And that was enough. The story of Jake and Ethan is a testament to the courage it takes to love in a world that doesn't always understand. Their journey, from a stolen touch in a hot tub to a life built on truth, reminds us that love, no matter how hard won, is always worth fighting for. In the end, they didn't just find each other, they found themselves, and a home where they could be free.